Hey everybody, welcome back to Spartan Theology. I still need to come up with a name for these afternoon streams I'm doing, but thank you to anybody coming by. Again, let me like my little banners. Thank you for anybody who comes by to this one. I'm really enjoying doing these streams, so anybody who comes by, I really appreciate it. Um, Today we're gonna be going over John 6, the feeding of the 5,000, as we continue through our series going through the 7 signs in John's Gospel. Oh, hey, Eric. Nice. Thank you for coming by. Yeah, I just oh, nice, Travis. We got a few people in the stream. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for coming by. Yeah, we're gonna continue going through John 6. If you guys want to join the stream, let me know. Or if you're busy and you're just gonna hang out in the chat, that's perfectly fine. I really appreciate coming by. So yeah, as we continue, like I said, we're going over the feeding of the 5,000. I just finished watching the debate between William Lane Craig and Alex Malpass on Capturing Christianity's channel. So I swear my mind's like a little fried. That debate was awesome. Yeah, Cameron's really getting some awesome people to come on his stream lately. So if you're not subscribed to Capturing Christianity, be sure to check them out. They're really cool. And he's in Houston, so I got to try and get him on my channel or do something with him at some point. And the debate was pretty intense. Travis is saying he still needs to go watch that. And yeah, a lot of it was over my head because I was pretty busy at work, so I was listening while I worked, and it was a lot over my head. But both the guys, like somebody posted in the chat, and it really pointed out like this is such a good example of the difference between like internet new atheists versus like these just apologist channels that are just for the views and whatnot, and all this mess, and like actual academics. And not that there's anything wrong with channels like What Do You Meme or something like I think What Do You Meme's channel is awesome. And he does a lot of good things, but it just put on display the difference in just the level, the not intelligence. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm like rambling over my words, but it just was wild hearing these two. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say they're both like probably geniuses or whatnot that just interact with each other was so different than just like a random debate on modern day debate or something like that. But anyway, we can get into John 6. Let me pull up my trusty Bible Gateway software. So like I said, normally what I do, I'm just going to read through the passage and go through those Bible project questions, and then just kind of point out something. There's a few things in here I like to point out. I think we're awesome. I know like there's like a undesigned coincidence that Josh Rasmussen, or is it Jonathan McClatchy? I get those two guys. It's Jonathan McClatchy that talks about it. My bad. I think. I don't know. For some reason, I get those two guys mixed up. They both start with a J, and they're kind of similar. But whatever. I've heard him talk a lot about, and just a few other things. So we'll get into some of the details. But first, I'm just going to read through the passage, and we'll go from there. So, after this, Jesus went away to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. And a large crowd was following him because they saw the signs that he was doing on the sick. Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. Now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was at hand. Lifting up his eyes, then, and seeing that a large crowd was coming towards him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread so these people may eat?" He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread would not be enough for each of them to get a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what are they for so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down, about 5,000 in number. Jesus then took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. And when they had eaten their fill, he told his disciples, "Gather up the leftover fragments, that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten. When the people saw the sign that he had done, they said, "This is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world." So, yeah, as we go through this, we'll kind of skim through each little point and hit like these Bible project questions I keep talking about. Basically, the way I've been trying to do this is first question I'm trying to answer is what exactly is the miracle that took place? Second, how do the people misunderstand the miracle? And third, what can we learn about Jesus's character from this miracle? So, and like I said, I got this question from a Bible project, and I know that like a lot of Jesus's works are misunderstood, but it almost seems like in a lot of these um, signs, it's not necessarily the case that they're always misunderstood. Which I mean, to a point, obviously, a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard because the misunderstanding in this one is kind of after this, where the people just want more and more of the bread. Whatever, we'll get into it. Kind of rambling, and it's hard. Like doing these in the middle of the workday is a little difficult. My mind like just switches over, but I think it's good for everybody. It's not meant to be some scholarly go through. It's more of just an enjoyable time that I get to go through scripture and share it with some people who hopefully watch the stream. But so after this, Jesus went away, and a large crowd was following him because they saw the signs that he was doing on the sick. See, this is like some evidence of John's gospel is much more of a story than the synoptic gospels that are more history. And not to say that what he's saying, like, it's not true. It's just that the way he lays it out, he includes and what he doesn't include is very, very intentional. And we see here that we don't really see in John's gospel all these signs that he's doing on the sick, but we see that in a lot of the other gospels, and he just kind of says it like already that Jesus was performing miracles on sick basically everywhere he goes. I mean, we saw the healing of the man who had been paralyzed for 38 years. That was the last sign we went over yesterday. But there's a lot more miracles that aren't really spelled out in John's gospel that we do find in the others. So this is kind of just a reference to them. And now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was at hand. Jesus saw the large crowd coming towards him. And this is what I was talking. Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread so these people may eat?" And this is actually interesting because we don't really know too much about Philip from this gospel at all. And from the other gospels, we know that he's not the one in charge of the money. That would have been Judas. And I need to stop hitting that. But we need to, which one? That would have been Judas who was in charge of the money. So it's interesting that Jesus asked Philip, and we find out later that Jesus is from Bethsaida. And then in another gospel, I'm trying to remember this as I'm like on the fly, but in another gospel, we find out that this event took place right outside of Bethsaida, where Philip is from. So it's like a connection that you would never expect to be made if these were if they weren't. It's just evidence that what they're presenting is the truth, that there's these undesigned coincidences, like the fact that it just doesn't seem like something that was made up just to give validity to the story. It's actually something random that never, like, more than likely nobody would have made up. I mean, I don't think this is necessarily like, it's tough I think you can have a lot of these and it can present evidence to a non-believer and it can really add up. But it's really cool to me. Like, as a believer, I see these things and it's just awesome. You're like, wow, these are just these like really cool little Easter eggs you kind of find throughout scripture that I think are just really cool to like have in your pocket. When you go through a Bible study with people, you're like, look, you notice this, like this actually connects here. And it's just really cool. And Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread would not be enough for them to get a little. And like a denarii was like a daily wage. That's what like a normal worker made in one day. And so what a normal worker made in one day. Yeah, I'm getting emails from my work about Harris County, where I live in Houston, just went under like a stay-at-home order. It's basically shelter in place, but they didn't want to call it that. So they're sending us emails and stuff. I'm already working from home. That's why I'm able to do these streams. But hope everybody's staying safe. Yeah. But to get back to what we were talking about, the denarii, 200 denarii. So basically, like 200 days worth of wages wouldn't even give these people like a taste of food. So, oh, Dallas did too. I see that from Travis. Yeah, it's getting wild out there. Hope you're able to stay safe, Travis and Eric, if you're still here. But so basically like 200 days worth of money. So it was super expensive. And Jesus, so and Jesus said this to test his faith. We see that throughout the story that Jesus will do these things, basically ask these questions that he knows the answer to, but just to see. And we see how Philip responded. He's like, "We don't have enough money. I don't know what we're gonna do." He doesn't have. If he had more faith, he could have turned to Jesus and like said, "I know that you'll get this done," or something along those lines. But he's basically worried. And the barley loaves are like a kind of a point that's interesting, because the barley loaves would have been the like lowest form of bread. Basically, like only the super poor people ate barley loaves. So it wasn't like this grand, like these super good donuts or something, you get at your favorite shop. It was like the crappiest bread that you could possibly have. So it's just kind of interesting how, Jesus is creator of the universe, king of the entire world, king of all creation. And he like puts himself in these positions like this where they have no food, and he uses like the lowliest form of food, these barley loaves, and does like such a grand miracle. And I just think that's really cool. And so basically the miracle is that he takes this like food that's basically nothing and turns it into as much food as the people could eat with leftovers. And then just some things I want to point out are like some ties back to the Old Testament here, which are just all over the place. Like Jesus, this ties right back to Exodus with the manna, where the people were starving in the wilderness and God provided them with manna that literally rained down from heaven and provided them with as much food as they needed. And we even see that when they say, "This is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world." And this is a reference to Moses saying that God will raise up a prophet like him in the future. And I just think that's really cool. Like that's what they mean by the prophet. Like he is the prophet that Moses talked about. And Jesus is the prophet, but he's also so much more. I mean, he is God in the flesh. So like that's a little bit of a misunderstanding if we can they think that he's just a prophet here, when in reality he is the voice that spoke to the prophets. you know so it's just cool. It's just really cool. Like I said, the whole idea of the manna and the bread, and that Jesus goes on in the right, like in the next few little bit, and Jesus talks about, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will not hunger. Whoever," and the saying. And whatchamacallit. So it's just, I think it's really cool. Like I recommend, if you want to like dive deeper into this sign, especially, an entire John's gospel is kind of like, the way he lays it out has a lot to do with the Old Testament and Exodus in particular. The story is basically, I've heard people say like John's gospel is a second Exodus, and like Jesus is freeing us from the slavery of sin in the second Exodus, the more important one. Jesus is the greater Moses, the greater Adam. You know, he just takes everything to the next level. And so I think that's like a really cool way to look at it. And this one really puts it into perspective. And some of the next ones, they start to ramp up and be more clear, I guess. Yes. Yeah, we'll put Travis's comment. I got my stream going to the side just to keep track it's coming through well. So I see the comments, but I can't put them up until later. God, ADD. It's not good to be a streamer with ADD. Can we just say that? Like, trying to do things like that, I get distracted so easy. But what was I gonna say? And another thing that ties back to the Old Testament is this line right here, 12 baskets, referring to the 12 tribes of Israel, which is really cool. Here we go. Travis says he's a prophet because he's 100% human, and he's also 100% God. Exactly. Like, they recognize that he was a prophet. Like, the words he spoke were the words of God, but they just didn't quite realize to the extent and how he was different than a lot of the other prophets, like Isaiah or Ezekiel. You know, these Old Testament prophets. John the Baptist was the last prophet. But so that's basically what I wanted to talk about there. Yeah, sort of. So let me see. Let me go through and like see if I can answer these questions. So basically, we what exactly is the miracle that he performed here? He took literal, basically nothing. I mean, he uses food not because he needs to, but because that's just the way. It's just the way he does. And I think there's something to be said about that. Like, God uses us not because he needs us, but because he wants to. And Jesus uses like the five barley loaves because he wants to. He uses the water in the jars in the wedding miracle because he wants to do it that way. And it's not because that's like he has to, you know. I mean, Jesus could have just put the food in directly in their stomach or something. You know, I mean, he could have done anything. He created all the people there, all 5,000 of them were all created by him, and he knew each and every one of them. He could have done it any way he wanted, but he chose to do it this way, and I think that's just really cool. So basically, the miracle is he took this like 5 loaves, which were nothing essentially for this many people, and turned them into more than enough food, a feast for these people. And how did the people misunderstand it? I mean, I think going forward, we see the misunderstanding a lot better, and how the people just keep coming to him because they want more food, and they don't quite realize that this food is just a picture of the eternal life that he came into the world to give to people. And what can we learn about Jesus from this sign is basically like we see first that he is not only just a prophet, but he is God incarnate. This is a picture of like Moses got the bread from God. Jesus got the bread from nobody because he is God. And Jesus came to provide people with more than they could ever think they wanted or needed. Came to provide people with exactly more than what they needed. He came to provide food that would never run out. And I think that's where we can go, where we see about Jesus in this one. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty good place to close. I think my lunch just got here, so pretty excited about that. But yeah, I hope everybody's doing all right. You know, this is pretty crazy times. Like I said, Houston just went under like a shelter in place basically, so it's pretty wild out there. But I hope everybody's staying safe, and thanks again for Travis and Eric for coming by. And hopefully we'll get more and more people in these streams. I'm really enjoying them though, so if people come by or not, I'm enjoying doing these. And I'm not exactly sure where we'll go next after we're done with John, but like I said, I'll be on tomorrow again about the same time. Oh yeah, and I wanted to say one thing before I get off. I actually do have a pretty cool announcement. If you're still there, Travis, you'd probably be excited about this. I talked to Dr. Sygart on Twitter, and he's probably going to come on the stream. He's coming on the stream next week, or on the channel next week. We'll probably do a live stream. And I think Monday around lunchtime, I'll have him on, which I'm really excited for. I think that's really cool. I've been seeing him on a lot of channels. I really love what he does about like breaking down the barriers between faith and science. He just does a lot of really cool things. So I'm really excited about that. I'm trying to practice my interviewing skills. But oh, Eric, you're here too. Yeah, I'm sure you'll. I wasn't sure if you were still here, but yeah, like I said, Dr. Sygart's coming on the channel, so that's really cool. And so yeah, I'm super excited about that. And with that, I guess I'm gonna head out. Like I said, I recommend checking out that debate on capturing Christianity. That was really cool. And anything else I've watched recently? Not so much. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming by, and everybody, God bless.